of the poses that we've been doing for the last week, we are going to make our way down to the floor and have like a locust pose that may help if you have a strap nearby. We're going to try to get some extension to the hips, and you can also do the extension of the hips from the chair though if you're not comfortable making it all the way down to the floor. So that being said, get your favorite props nearby, and we will start at the back of the mat as we usually do. And let me see about this. I'm going to move the mic just slightly. Okay, hopefully the volume's good for you. And come into the back of your mat, into your home base of mountain. We are just arriving, giving ourselves the chance to notice how we feel as we make our way to the beginning of practice. Arms are nice and relaxed at the side. See how the mat feels under the feet. The legs are tight from your week's activities. Give yourself a gentle bend to the knees. And each time we return to our mountain pose, we'll hopefully get a little longer, a little taller, stronger. Alrighty. Let's begin by focusing a little more on the breath now. Bringing the left hand to rest on the chest. Right hand under the belly button. Give yourself the next few breath cycles to focus on inhaling through the nose. A brief pause before you exhale through the nose. Another brief pause before you start the next breath cycle. On the inhale, you may feel the hand on the chest lifting at the top of the inhale. Perhaps your rib cage expands outwardly as well. On the exhale, engage the core at the bottom of the exhale, pressing in the belly hand, helping to remind you to engage. Finish cultivating our yogic breath with the sound of the ocean, a deep sigh, something at the back of the throat on both the inhales and the exhales. With our breath cycle, just a little longer than when we arrived, we can go ahead and release the hands to our side. We'll start coordinating the breath with our body movement. Let's inhale, start to feel the energy drawing from the feet, up the legs, up the spine, past the crown of the head, and beyond. On the exhale, slowly feel that energy return course down the body, down the legs, feet, into the earth, feeling a little more rooted. And with the next inhale, we'll start to bring our weight towards the toes, tipping that weight all the way to the edge at the top of the inhale. Then using the next breath to slowly move the weight back towards the heels. Just notice how the center of gravity changes slowly for the next few breaths. Notice if your arches start to roll outward or inward. Try to keep that exploration from heel to toe. And then we'll meet at the center, somewhere above the ankles. And dropping into the mountain, let's reset. Inhaling nice and tall, feeling a little longer. Exhale, roll the way towards the outer right edge of your feet. Fully exhaled, Inhale up to the center for a 3-part breath, exhaling to the other side. Or you can use each inhale and exhale just to rock from side to side at the soles of the feet for a 2-part breath. But try to find that horizontal mapping while the soles of the feet still remain in contact, just feeling the center subtly shifting. And then we'll meet back at center once more at the top of the ankles, nearer to the heels. Inhaling nice and tall once more. Feel that string at the crown of the head lifting up towards the ceiling. With that uplifting feeling, we're just going to make small circles in one direction at the ankles. And this is just to slowly explore the perimeter of the feet, getting closer and closer to the edge. And in this one direction, once you've found the perimeter, we'll start to tighten in the circles, return to that home base area above the ankles. And we'll meet back at mountain. Reset the mountain if you need to. Lift your feet. Sometimes if you have a tendency to grab at the mat, just lifting, doing some sort of counter movement to deactivate, disconnect from that last pose. Heel to toe alignment once more. We're going to inhale. Feel yourself just gently pressing in. Internal rotation of the thighs. Feeling the big pad under the big toe. And then we're going to make that same circuitous path, but in the opposite direction. Starting at the ankles once more. And just radiating outwards to the edge of the feet finally. And then we can start tightening in the circles and return to home base once more. Give yourself a few breath cycles to get there. Notice how it feels in the ankles, and the hips, and the rest of the body. And then back at home base, we'll reset once more. And the next warm-up, we're just going to start shifting our weight from side to side. Imagine as we shift more of that weight, we're going to start to pivot the toes out just slightly. And with that, just that subtle movement, we might start to feel the upper torso moving slightly offbeat from the lower pelvic, lower limbs. And as that occurs, you might have this gentle twisting at the waist. And as more and more of your torso moves to one side, be sure to lift those toes in that direction so we protect our knees. And you may feel the arms starting to gain momentum and moving on their own. If you have a good deep swivel, you may find the arms just gently tapping against the front and the back as you move along. And then we can start to diminish the momentum and return to center once more, bringing in that heel to toe alignment, pivoting in the toes, the heels, lifting up the feet as we need to kind of let go from that last pose. Then we'll go ahead and move on up to the shoulders, the upper body, and at this point, see if you can consciously give yourself a gentle tuck under of the tailbone, pressing into the big pad under the feet, feeling just a little more rooted downwards as we go on up to the upper body, palms facing forward. Let's go ahead and inhale, shoulders lift up, and on the exhale, let's roll them back, then down. Giving ourselves a total of 4 breath cycles, just to see how our shoulders are feeling in this warm-up exercise. See if you can make the movement all about the shoulders while the rest of the body stays stable, supporting the upper torso. And then we can go for a second set here. We're going to lift up as usual on the inhale, but this time roll them forward and down on the exhale. And again, about 4 breath cycles worth of these shoulder rolls forward on the exhale. Using that yogic breath, nice and deep and slow, to facilitate release, introduce energy into the body. I think I have one more here. And then we'll move up to the head, the neck and above. Go ahead and release from that last pose, and we'll go ahead and feel that energy lifting once more from the feet all the way up the body through to the crown of the head. And with that uplifted feeling energizing us up, go ahead and exhale. Let the right ear dip towards the right shoulder, palms facing forward. Use the next breath to inhale at the sternum, a slight lift, and exhale, turn the gaze until it stops naturally. Giving the next 3 to 4 breath cycles here. See if you can maintain the stability from the shoulders down to the heels, while the yogic breath helps you to release on the left side of the neck, jawline, face, and even the eyes. Let those be like heavy weights, guiding this vision towards the right. Shoulder blades nice and relaxed on the back, upper back. And maybe by that very last exhale, you're resting your gaze on your right thumb, the right side of the floor, right shoulder, maybe even behind the right shoulder. And then you can inhale the eyes into the gaze. The gaze lifts up at the crown of the head towards the ceiling. On the inhale, at the very top, so all you have to do is exhale over to the left side, keeping both shoulders in line. A deep breath and turn the gaze on the exhale. And again, about 4 breath cycles worth of breathing intentionally, helping to receive the energy, to scan the body, and the release on the exhale, feeling just a little more rooted through the body on the exhale, engaged core. Maybe the eyes can relax. And once more, at the leftmost of the periphery, by the end of the last breath cycles, exhale. Then inhale the eyes, the gaze, the crown of the head up towards the top. And then let the eyes float downward on the exhale until you reach about the top of the mat. About 6 feet in front of you, a nice orange or tennis ball size space between the chin and the chest. And as you're inhaling, just that slight tilt at the crown of the head towards the ceiling. Notice how the body feels. And after that last 4th exhale, inhale the eyes up towards the center, past the center line, till you can see somewhat above you, and then stop craning the neck. And use the next 4 breath cycles to open up through the throat, through the jaw, relax the brow line, scalp. The tongue. And after the last exhale, let the eyes float back to the center. And then shake out anything in the wrists, lift the feet, see if you're gripping the mat. And we'll come into our first folds before we start our walking meditation. If you're in the chair and you'd like to just walk in place, you can always just stand in front of your chair and give yourself that walking, marching motion. And so we'll just start by folding. You can also always use the chair or blocks nearby if you need to hold them in your hands so you can meet the distance at the floor. But reaching downwards with the fingertips, feeling energy reaching downwards, we're going to inhale, extend the arms upwards. And at the top, engage the core and start to hinge at the hips. We're going to stick the tailbone back. Feel as if you're pressing the feet down on the floor like you're going to pull them apart, and that should help to open up the hips. And just start to slowly hinge into your first ragdoll of a fold. You may not get very far. It might be more of a half lift. That's okay. Support your hands if you need, either forearms on the thighs, maybe they're on the blocks, maybe they're just dangling in front of you. But we're about 5 breath cycles here at our first ragdoll of a forward fold, just releasing. I'm going to reach for the lock. We don't want to hold on to our head. So give yourself any yes and no movements. See if you can release through the neck. Allow the head to just dangle. Maybe at some point, the crown of the head will move more towards the floor as the chest gets closer to the thighs. Okay, and if you have your blocks in your hands, you can press into the blocks as we come back up with a slow roll up. You can press into the shins, into the forearms of the thighs. You can walk them up, but with the next inhale, pressing into the feet, engaging the core, we're going to start to bring the tailbone down and come up one vertebra at a time. Last thing to stack on the spine is the neck. Give yourself a moment to let the blood rush back to the head. And we'll do another set. One more time, reaching downward with the fingertips. Inhale, the arms up above. Exhale, engage the core. Bend the knees if you need. Stick the tailbone back and start to hinge at the hips. Flat back, but you can always walk the hands down. Come on in for another fold. Have the hands supported, or just let them dangle with the help of gravity to help release through the back. And just notice how you're feeling. The support at the hips down to the heels. You should have a nice solid column of support. You can always bend one knee, lengthen that leg, bend the other knee, lengthen that leg if you'd like. You can make any movements to help facilitate the release of the upper body. And then once more, we're going to come up with either a slow roll up or with a straight back this time, but engaging the core, pressing into the feet, inhaling, coming all the way back up. Take your blocks with you if you're using them, and then reaching all the way up, exhaling hands down heart center. We'll start our walking meditation. Stepping into the left side of the body, feeling that stability before you lift the right foot. You can start with the heel, engage your core, pressing into the palms to help stabilize the body, and we'll step that foot up and one step forward. Higher the step, the bigger the step, the more challenging your walking meditation. Stepping that foot all the way down on the exhale, lifting the left foot, and exhaling that forward. We'll take one full breath cycle per step forward. Slow walking meditation, feeling the center of gravity shifting as you lift the foot and set it down. You could always use that back foot to launch forward gently. Pressing into the palms, engaging the core to help keep your balance. If you feel a little wobbly, and at the top of the mat, we'll meet in our mountain. Looking down at the fingertips, pressing into the palms. Inhale. Watch the hands or the blocks lift up towards the ceiling. Separating the palms. On the exhale, we're going to hinge at the hips once more for another fold. Sticking the tailbone back, bending the knees if we need, and letting the back slowly release just a little more at this fold. Fully exhaled here. Inhale, half lift, pressing into wherever your hands have made contact. Exhale, fold once more. And then we can put our hands to either side of our feet. Use the blocks if you need to on the lowest settings, and step back. Could be one step back for each foot or a few steps back. For the high plank, we're lifting the shoulders over the wrists on the inhale, and on the exhale, just bring the shins downward. Make sure your elbows are kind of bending towards the back. And then for the first modified high plank, just notice how the body is bearing the weight. We want the hands, the shoulders, nice and strong, supporting that upper body weight, while the tops of the ankles, the shins primarily, are supporting the lower body. And you may have to make adjustments, walking the hands forward or lifting up the kneecaps, tucking the toes under, and bringing the knees back, whichever helps you to find that good balance of weight. Imagine from the shins to the crown of the head, one nice long diagonal. And the fingers splayed. Fingertips to the heels, everything in between supporting that upper weight. And keeping that the shoulders rotated away from the ears. You can tell easily by bending the elbows back towards the back of the mat. Engage the core, have the belly button sticking to the spine. One more inhale. One more exhale. Tuck the toes on the inhale, lift up the hips. Exhale, press the hips back into down dog. Bringing the head somewhere in between the upper arms. Make your adjustments between the hands and the feet. Feet should be about hips distance apart. Hands should be about shoulder width apart. You can always modify your down dog by bringing the forearms down if you'd like. You can always use blocks. Be careful to keep the lower back rounded. If you're in that lower modified down dog. And since we're here for about 5 breath cycles, what you're focusing on is eventually lowering the heels, but they don't have to be lowered. They can be up. And you eventually will hopefully have a shape resembling an upside down V. So all the while, just depending on how much activity you've had, you might be kind of stiff in unfolding the body into this general shape. But take your time, and it's a practice. Don't forget the yogic breath once you've found your sweet spot. You can always walk the dog by simply bending one knee and alternating, lengthening that leg and bending the other knee. It just helps you to stretch out those tight calves, Achilles, heels, hamstrings, just a little more. You can also lift up at the tailbone as you're pressing down through your arms into the fingers, into the palms, into the heel of the palm. And always keep the head underneath, in between the upper arms, not looking forward, craning the neck.
And we should be at about 5 breath cycles at this point. So we can inhale, roll the eyes towards the hands, bend the knees deeply if you have tight legs, take your blocks with you if you need, and walk the hands to the back of the mat. Beautiful. And at the fold, we're fully exhaled here. Inhale, half lift. Lengthening through the legs, through the back, looking down below you. And then exhale once more. Chest gets closer to the thighs, into our fold. And then inhale, bend the knees, drop the tailbone if you need. But choose your slow roll up or a straight back. At the top, we're reaching up, pressing into our feet, lengthening, rooting down as we're reaching upwards, growing our branches. Hands down, heart center. Or blocks. And then we can inhale, hands up once more. Exhale, fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold once more. And we're going to come up one more time. I don't know why I did that, but here we are. And then we're going to bring our hands down, heart center, and lift one foot, starting our second walking meditation. Exhaling that foot down. Lifting the other foot. Exhaling that foot down. And as we make our way all the way to the top, one full breath cycle per step. And at the top, we'll look down at our fingertips, pressing into the palms, lifting the hands. Exhale, separating the palms and hinging at the hips, bending those knees if you need, and coming down for our, I believe it's our fourth fold. Fully exhaled into our fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold, and come on down. One more time, walking the feet down. Hands at either side of the feet, and then we walk the feet one step or several steps into that high plank. Inhaling, shoulders over the wrists. And here we're staying for about 3 breath cycles. Make sure you feel the energy from the heels to the toes, from the shoulders to the wrists, as well as that long diagonal from the heels all the way to the crown of the head. And then on the next inhale, we can lift the hips. Exhale, press into those extended arms to help bring the hips back into your down dog. And 3 breath cycles here. Do what movement feels good to you. You can inhale, lifting the tailbone, coming up to the balls of the feet, the very tip toes. And then exhale, slowly let the heels float down towards the floor. You can always keep a bend to the knees if your legs are extra tight, especially at the back. And then for your last exhale, we're going to inhale, roll the eyes towards the hands, keep a bend to the knees if you need, and then walk the hands and or the blocks to the back of the mat. Beautiful. Fully exhaled here. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Then once more, drop the tailbone. Inhale, engaged core. Slow roll up or straight back all the way to the top. Exhaling, hands down, heart center.
And we'll go ahead and walk for our third time, inhaling right foot up, standing weight to the left side, stepping that foot forward on the exhale, bringing that shift of the center towards that top foot. Inhale, left foot up, exhale that down. One full breath cycle per step. Higher the knee, the bigger the step, or just hover that foot and walk it forward. Engage the core. It'll help to keep you a little more balanced, but if you fall out, that's okay. Come on back. And at the top of the mat, we'll meet in mountain. Looking at the fingertips or the block tops, press into the palms, lift them up, and on the exhale, separate the hands and fold, hinging at the hips, engaged core, sticking the tailbone back, floating on down. One more time. Fully exhaled at the bottom of the fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold once more. Step the hands side to side of the feet. Step back. Step. Take several steps back if you need. Come into your high plank. Inhaling shoulders over the wrists. And stay here for 3 good long breath cycles. Recall the ocean, the sound of the deep sigh to the back of the throat. Engaged core. Then inhale, hips lift, and then you can push them back towards your down dog. Exhaled here. Use the next 3 breath cycles nice and slow to feel out your dog. A gentle internal rotation at the thighs to help open up the pelvic and hip joint area so you can get more of the chest towards the thighs, more of that upside down V shape. And especially if your heels are down on the floor, so you can arrange a little bit of that pigeon toe. And head, again, the head somewhere in between the upper arms. And with that last exhale, inhale, roll the eyes towards the hands. Take the blocks if you're using them and walk them back to the back of the mat. And your fold, fully exhaled. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Then engage the core, come on up, your choice. Hands down, heart center. And finally down to the side. It's a good time for a little water. We're going to be moving into our balance pose. And I figured for today we would do our chair balance pose. And what you can do is keep the blocks somewhere on the flat side behind you, and you can step in front of them if you'd like. And what we'll do is eventually bring our heels to the blocks, and you can use 1 block or 2. If you have a wide stance chair, it's probably better to do 2 blocks. If you have a nice narrow stance where the inner arches are touching, you might be able to get away with 1 or just use the side. But we're gonna just come into our chair from a mountain position, square foot between the feet. And if you're using those blocks, just go ahead and come up to the back of it with your heels, or just step over it, whichever helps. And here, you're feeling once more, if you've got a really tight hip and your tailbone is sticking back, we're trying to tuck under the hip and gently pressing into our legs, internal rotation of the thighs, just to get us to engage those inner and outer thigh muscles to stand a little taller in our mountain. Once we're doing that, imagine if you feel your torso is pitching forward some, we're trying to lift up and bring it into the pelvic bowl as we're tucking under our tailbone. And with the next inhale, just go ahead and extend the arms forward. They can be at an angle here, a tangent. They can be straight up above you. We don't want to completely back bend here at the lower back, so just be careful of that. Try to keep a nice kind of rounded out lower back. And then we will just start to bend at the knees and looking down. Hopefully you can still see your toes, but we're just going to bend slightly. And you can always feel like you're pulling apart at the feet to help that pelvic bowl tilt just slightly so you can bring the tailbone back. And again, you want to kind of curve out that lower back. Try not to have it too high arched. And we're just going to stay there. The deeper the bend in the knees, the more challenging our chair pose will be. And you're engaging the core, you're feeling rooted, you're feeling all points of the soles of the feet on the floor. And then you can slowly start to rock your center of gravity towards the balls of the feet without lifting the heels. Just see if you can make that subtle shift, and then looking on down, making sure you can see the toes. Your heels should still be on the mat, but you're feeling the majority of that center right there at the balls of the feet. And curve out that lower back if you're starting to feel compression there. Right here, sometimes we're arching too high and we just need to tuck under the tailbone and fill out that curve just a little more. And then with the next inhale, we'll press through the legs, lifting up, engaging the glutes, exhaling hands towards the center and down to the chest. All right, give yourself a breath or two here. And we're going to come in for a second set of chair, lifting the arms up, either at a tangent or straight above you. And then exhale, bend the knees once more. Feel the glutes engage. Stick out the tailbone slightly. And this time, once you've gotten that stability down on the floor, just slowly bring the weight again to the balls of the feet and see if you can lift the heels. You might be able to step back. If you're not able to lift the heels, step back and just slide a foot a little bit back and just bring a heel onto the block. You can start there. Engage the core. You're probably still lifted, hopefully, if you're able to do that. Maintain that. Engaged core. And then one last breath here. Inhaling and then exhale. You can step off of the blocks. Come on back to flat feet. Lengthen through the legs, hands down heart center and down to the sides. Go ahead and roll your shoulders, especially if you've had your arms up for a while and shoulders are feeling tight. And you can march in place a little bit. You can give a little standing weight to one side, roll the ankles, see if you can release from the glutes there. Do the same thing on the opposite leg. And then we're going to make our way down to the floor. We're going to use our locus, and if you're on the floor, you might need the strap. If you're not able to reach around and grab your ankles, your shin, the material on the calf side, you may need the strap next to you. If you're in the chair, I want you to think about that one low lunge exercise where we sit on the edge of the chair and we just basically have our sits bones on the edge and we just walk the knee downward. That's all you need to do to open up through one side, and you'll have the other hip supported by the chair while you just start to scoot this, freestanding knee downward, and you'll find that opening here. And you can find that version of a hip opener in your low lunge on the chair. I'm going to make my way down to the floor, And taking your strap or a strap nearby, come on down as comfortably as you can. Move away any blocks that might be in your way. And we'll come on down to our belly. And if you're in the chair, you're just getting yourself situated, sits bones at the edge of the chair, and kind of scooting towards that corner of the chair so you can have one hip, that knee that will be traveling back. Just slightly off the hip, the chair seat. Anyhow, here we are. If you're on your belly, we're going to give ourselves that moment or two just to feel how good it is to have our hips supported. You can rest your brow line on the pillowed hands here, one on top of the other. If that's uncomfortable for your shoulders, you can always remove glasses and just rest your head on one side of your face, on a cheek, or on the other side. And just give yourself a gentle roll from side to side while you're on your belly. And then we're going to bring our face towards the center. Now, with our first set, if you have your strap, you can bend your knees, having the strap over your thighs. Just see if you can reach back towards the ankles. If you're not able to do that, see if you can bring the strap underneath the ankles, and you can just use the strap to help you make that distance. And you can just start inching your hands closer to the edge of the strap, and then eventually maybe get a hold of your ankles. But until then, just give yourself about, let's say 3 to 5 breath cycles to get to that sweet spot. And once you can get a hold of the ankles, you can feel your knees lengthening down the mat, and relax the ankles, relax the toes. But just see if you can lengthen through the knees, through the thighs, down the mat. And then we can release. Bring the hands down to the side, release the strap, and roll your ankles. I'm getting reverberation here. Sorry, I gotta move this mic. Okay. See if I move the mic away from my mouth, maybe away from the direction. Maybe it might not have that feedback. Okay. Oh, and if your face is on one side of the mat, press into the chest and slowly just hover and change the direction of your gaze to the other side of your cheek, to your other cheek. We're going to come in for a second set. You can also just have your nose and mouth kind of, gently supporting the face. But we'll come in for a second set and reaching back towards your feet once more. See if you can have the inner arches, the fingertips touching the inner arches. And if you're able to do that, then again, we're going to feel the lengthening of our thighs downward, engaging the glutes, but lengthening the legs down the mat, and then see about just holding up the knee, hovering it above the mat, or just intending to do that. You can squeeze your glutes and see if that helps. Relaxed shoulders, relaxed arms. It's almost as if just the lift of the glutes and the thighs up above the mat is slowly allowing the feet to pull the hands and the arms straight. If you're just trying to reach your feet, just get to that point. And breathe 3 to 5 breath cycles through wherever you are at this point.
if you're on the chair, you want to make sure you're on the other side with the second set. Sorry about that. You do need to have switched your low lunge on the one leg to the other leg. We're working on both our hips at the same time on the mat, but if you're on the chair, you'll hopefully be on the other side, exercising that other hip or stretching the other hip. Okay, and then we can release the hold, release the strap if you're using it, and slowly let the legs come down to the mat. And give yourself a gentle tapping of the feet. You can come up to the toe tuck. And just flex the feet a bit. And then you can relax the feet once more. Now we're going to spread some distance between the feet, maybe a little more than the hips distance. You can rest the tops of the feet on the mat. Bring the arms out to the side, palms down, and your face should be facing the mat. And with an inhale, we're just going to lengthen through all of our limbs. Just feel them getting longer while you're still contacting the floor. Take another breath here while you're still lengthening. And then release. Just let the limbs relax back to the mat. We're going to try a second set using the same method of lengthening through the legs, and then on the inhale, we'll see if we can just lift the feet first. If you can't lift it, don't worry about it. Just keep lengthening and give that intention of lifting. But we're lengthening with our breath. And then on an inhale, if you haven't already, see if you can lift the feet, the tops of the feet off the mat. Engage your core, engage the glutes. And you can have your hands kind of counterbalancing you. And then exhale, let the feet float on down. Let the legs relax. Let the arms come closer to your side. And you can go ahead and turn your gaze to one side as well. Let the shoulders relax, see if they melt into the mat. Inhale. If your face is on the cheek, you're going to switch sides by gently pressing into the chest as you turn the gaze. A couple of breaths on this side just to balance it out. And then we're going to make our way onto our back if you're on the mat and come into a forward-facing seated position on the chair with the sits bones at the edge. And we're just going to come into a base bridge position on the mat. This way. If you have a favorite way of turning around, go ahead and do so. Sometimes I like to bring my arm up and just roll on my side. If that's not available to you, you can always just bring your hands underneath your shoulders and lift up into that half modified high plank and bring the knees and hands to all fours and then bring the hips down so you can come on to your back. Now remove any props that might be in your way. In this base bridge position, we're just going to have one more release here. Feet don't have to touch the buttocks. Arms should be out to the side, palms down. We're just going to let our windshield wipe to one side. Your favorite side, doesn't matter which, just let it occur. Roll onto the outer edge of your feet on one side. And give yourself a good 2-3 breath cycles here. See if you can find that release in the top hip here. You might have the bottom hip leg getting closer and closer to the mat, to the floor, as you relax into this counter stretch. And on the inhale, we're going to press into the palms, engage our core, bring the sacrum down, and help to bring the knees up if you need with your hands, but see if you can do it with just the core and the strength of your legs and your glutes. And then making sure you're still aligned here, the neck and the spine aligned.
the feet comfortably at hips distance apart. We're just going to inhale deeply and then exhale. Let the knees gently windshield wipe to the other side. Give yourself about 3-5 breath cycles to get to your fullest savoring of the windshield wipe hold on this side. Oh, if your shoulder lifts up, that's okay. It doesn't have to stay on the floor, but it is a deeper stretch, eventually like a spinal twist, if you keep it on the floor. But listen to the body, just help it to open up, and don't force anything. And hopefully in your seated position, you're able to do your gentle windshield wipe to this side as well by just simply rolling onto the edge of one side of your feet, letting the knees drop to that side. And then once more, engage the core, use your hands if you need, and inhale. Use the hands if you need to help assist the knees upwards, but see if you can use your core to just roll the sacrum, the lower back, onto the mat, coming back to a base bridge position. And then let the knees knock inward for just a moment or two. And then bringing the knees back to face the ceiling. We're just going to let them lengthen as we enter our final Shavasana, our final resting pose. You can do one leg at a time. You can do both legs at the same time. See what works for you. If you find yourself highly tented at the hips, you might have to do an overhead stretch, flexing of the arms, flexing of the feet, wiggling of the arms. You can even lift up at the torso, giving yourself a slight arch, and then relax. Bring the arms back down to the side. And as you're in your final resting pose, do what you like. If it requires bending the knees and letting them rest knock-kneed, you could do that. If you have that lower back compression, you can always put blocks underneath your knees, if that helps. You could just let your legs lay supported. Let the whole entire back of the body be supported by the floor, and eventually just melt into the mat. And as you rest here for the next few minutes, let the belly be soft. Release the tongue from the roof of the mouth. Allow the palms to face the ceiling. And when you hear the 3 bells, we'll awaken. Bringing the mind back to the body, taking note of sounds outside the room, sounds within the room, and finally back to the breath. Notice the air as it enters your nose. Notice the air as it exits the nose. And then as you reconnect to the body vessel once more, make any movements with the hands, the feet. You can rock from side to side and making your way to an upright position. We'll meet in a seated choice of yours. You can be in a staff position, you can be in hero, you can have a cross-legged position. Anything that allows your torso to be situated upright, 90-degree angle to the hips. We'll end our class with our breath of fire, and we'll do another 20 round this time. We started with 10 a couple weeks ago, and we're moving on up to 20. And in your seated position, we're breathing through pursed lips, blowing out, using the gut, the abdomen as a sort of bellowing, pumping action. We'll have our very last breath as a slow exhale, and then we'll feel something like cutting off the urination flow, a pelvic floor lift at that very last breath, and a gentle chin tuck. And you can imagine your energy being trapped between these 2 points for about 3 to 4 breath cycles or seconds. You don't have to stay longer if you're not able to hold the breath. But I'll try to keep count with my fingers up here. So getting ourselves nice and upright. Take a nice deep breath in. And then starting now. Pushing out all the air, engaged core, lifting the pelvic floor, chin tuck. Hold it for about 3 to 4 breath cycles. And then release. Take a deep breath in. We're going to do that one more time. Taking a nice deep inhale. Releasing, letting the breath come back to its natural state. Let's bring our hands to heart center. Thank you so much for joining us here at the ACC community room for gentle yoga. I hope you have a wonderful day. Namaste. Thank you. Sorry, a little off today, but here we are. Hopefully you feel a little better. Eventually we'll get to that 30 breath cycle point. You may feel some vibration, some numbness